In this episode of the Campcast, I had the opportunity to chat with Chaos Theory head writer Bethany Armstrong Johnson. Stick around until after the intro to hear what we had to chat about. Hello and welcome to the Cretaceous Campcast. I am Cretaceous Dave, and this is a podcast all about Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous and Jurassic World Chaos Theory. Jurassic June is coming to an end. We just have a couple more days, and we still, unfortunately, do not have a Chaos Theory Season 2 teaser trailer. I'll be perfectly honest, I really thought we would have had it by now, but I guess not. The last chance we probably have for this week is going to be tomorrow. As of when I'm recording it is Wednesday, June 26th. There isn't usually precedence for trailers being released on Fridays, at least not with Camp Cretaceous or Season 1 of Chaos Theory. There have been things dropped on Thursdays, though, so fingers crossed, maybe we'll get something tomorrow. By the time you're listening to this, it may already be tomorrow, or, it could be days or weeks or even months later. But as of when I'm recording this, still no Chaos Theory Season 2 teaser trailer. Really, really hoping we get it before the end of the month. It would be a great way to cap off Jurassic June. But what are you going to do? If they don't give it to us, that's all right. It's going to sneak up on us and we'll be so excited and we'll be chatting about it for, the weeks or months leading up to when the first, full trailer comes out. Anyway, on to this episode. This episode I'm super excited about. I hope you will be too. I had the honor to sit down and have an interview with the head writer of Chaos Theory, Bethany Armstrong Johnson. I can't thank her enough for taking time out of her busy schedule to, chat with me on this podcast. It's awesome. This is my first real interview I got to do, and it couldn't be with a greater person. She had a lot of great things to say. She was so much fun, and, maybe we'll be able to get to do this again after Season 2. I don't know. We'll see how things go, but it was really great, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. So take a listen and see what we had to chat about. But before I get into anything, I've got a really important question.
Okay.
I've got to ask.
All right. I'm ready.
What's your better chance of survival? Being hunted by the Atrociraptors or being stuck on the island with the Scorpius Rex?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. Me specifically, I feel like I know a lot about the Scorpius Rex, so I feel like I would probably have a better chance of survival with the Scorpius Rex just because of my knowledge of the creature. And also knowing the fact that there's another one that's going to take it out. I feel like, I feel like I got a good chance on the island against the Scorpius.
Yeah, I guess with insider info.
Yeah, exactly.
That helps.
yeah, exactly. I have intimate knowledge. So other than that, I don't know. That would be if I didn't have that sort of extra layer, I don't know that I feel like it would be a crapshoot either way.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out some really fun question to break the ice.
Yeah,
Brad asked a lot of his guests about the raptors in the kitchen. So, I borrow a lot of stuff from Brad. He knows that, so I don't have to apologize to him. He's an inspiration to me,
I feel like Scorpius is our version of that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. You reproduce that scene, except way more chaotic.
Yeah.
Because Scorpius is just totally unhinged. So
yeah, exactly.
It was really fun. Watching that whole season, I was like,
Yeah, that was such a fun season, right?
Yeah, I do have something to ask you about that season, but before let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Were you always a Jurassic fan? And if so, what was it like when you finally got that job?
No, that's a good question. I was terrified of Jurassic Park when I was a kid. So I know there's a lot of like debate on kind of like where it falls in the genre realm. I consider especially the OG Jurassic Park to be a horror movie, and I was absolutely terrified of it as a child. I remember distinctly watching it. Like I guess my parents must have gotten the VHS of it at some point. We rented it, and when the goat hits the top of the Jeep, I was like, nope, I am out. This is too scary. This is too much for me. And I like ran into the other room and I think I watched Friends or something. I don't know, whatever was on TV at the time. And that is sort of my introduction to Jurassic Park. So I was not a fan of it. I was terrified by it. But as I got older, obviously, I grew to love the genre of horror, and I grew to love Jurassic Park for what it is, and sort of matured and was able to sort of handle it more as an adult, which I think is kind of encouraging, because I know I have a lot of friends who's like kid, some people like their kids are like really into Jurassic Park or really into that sort of stuff when they're younger, and some people aren't, but I'm like, just you wait, they will be eventually, just give them time. Like I had to have time to kind of come to the scary stuff a little bit, but yeah, so like once I kind of, and my husband, he's really into horror growing up and stuff, so he kind of sort of opened my eyes to the genre as well, and kind of helped me through my fears, I guess, of it, and that sort of was like my introduction to it. So then when I got when I was able to write on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, it was such a dream, because obviously it's such a big franchise, and it's like I have so many friends who have been fans of it since they were little. I've been a fan of it for years and years. Once I got over my fear and all of that. So it was just it was really just like a pinch me moment to be able to work on something so iconic, but also something that I love and all my friends love and everybody around me, loves and you grew up with. I mean, it came out in 93 and I'm older than that. So like it's been in my life like since the beginning, so it was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So to kind of piggyback, was there any for your career, was there any particular TV show or movie that like gave you that aha moment, like I want to be a writer?
I kind of came to writing a little roundabout, because when I was always writing and creating stories when I was younger, but for some reason, I don't know exactly what it was, but it wasn't always, it felt like a career path. It felt like something that like you do and other people do, and other people are really like a lot more talented at. So I kind of put it on the back burner for a long time, but I was always into movies and TV shows. I grew up on TV. I grew up on movies, like, art. I feel like every family has kind of like their movie, and ours was Back to the Future,
Nice.
the trilogy. And so that one is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I feel like even though I don't kind of look back and go, that's what made me want to write, I remember watching that movie and just being absolutely enthralled with it. Loved all the characters, all the heart they put into it, all the humor, everything about that was kind of like, just like, to me, it's like a perfect movie. And so I think growing up with really good movies like that, or Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, like a lot of the stuff that kind of, in the 90s was out. And a lot of TV shows, I watched so many TV shows, I couldn't even like start naming them, because there's so many, and they're so like span so many different genres that, I feel like it would kind of be a really weird list to start listing off. But I've always kind of like been in that entertainment world. And so I knew that's kind of like something that I wanted to be a part of as I got older. But, it took me a little to find kind of like where I fit into that. But yeah, all of that stuff kind of is what I feel like shaped my sensibilities and shaped my love of writing and stories, basically.
Very cool. Back to the Future is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, great choice.
Yeah, thank you.
It's like we have like, I don't know, maybe it's just being nostalgic, but like in the late 80s, early 90s, there seem to be like so many better movies and TV shows than we have now.
Yeah, there's
other
a
than
lot
Camp
of
Cretaceous and Chaos Theory, of course.
Of course. I feel like one of the things that they focused on a lot was kind of, I don't know, I could probably wax eloquent about it attempt to for a while, but I do think one of the things they really hit on, and I think Jurassic Park is a perfect example of this. I think E.T., movies like that, is this kind of, and I think Pixar does it really well, especially kind of in their heyday. It's like focusing these stories on things that anybody can relate to, and you've got some things for older people but some things for younger people, but it's kind of like I think that's what blockbusters are great about, is being able to kind of appeal to like a wide breadth of people. And I think we might be in this world of trying to focus too much on spectacle and not focusing on the stories and the characters and because if you care about the characters and you care about what the spectacle that you're seeing them go through, you care about that, and the plot and everything. But I think sometimes movies today can err too much on the side of like, let's make it look cool. And that's great. And I think you need both, but you need both. You need to make sure that like people are caring about the characters and caring about what's happening to them, and all that sort of stuff. So that's my 2 cents on it. But
That's actually a really good segue. And if we jump around between Camp Cretaceous, Chaos Theory, General,
yeah,
sorry, that's just kind of the way my brain works. But
no,
you
it's all
talking
good.
about the characters is just fantastic because both shows have great character development and fantastic characters. Like they're written so well. But like in Camp Cretaceous, we got to see so much growing up across 5 seasons that like I use Yaz as an example of like her character development throughout that series was just phenomenal. And then, she's this shy, keeps to herself to she comes out of her shell, does everything she can to save Sammy's life. And then,
Yeah,
by the end, she's experiencing PTSD and she's going through all this stuff and she's, all this self-discovery. And then we fast forward 6 years and we see how these kids are now young adults and they've
yeah,
matured. And something you guys managed to do was handle the maturity of them, really well and handle some grown up topics like the long distance relationships and the PTSD and, loss of a loved one. But at the same time, you did keep it kid friendly enough that someone like my son can sit through the entire series in one watch. Like I'm surprised a 6-year-old binged the show, but
yeah,
I was on my way out the door to work. I'm like, here, I'm going to put on the new Camp Cretaceous. That's what I called it because he
yeah,
didn't, know at the
sure.
time. I get home from work and he's like, I watched the whole thing and Brooklyn's alive, daddy. I'm like, oh,
Oh no.
like, like
I
I woke
mean,
up at 3 and I binged it before work, so it was fine. I knew what's going
oh,
on,
okay,
but like
okay, good, okay,
if
good.
I didn't watch it, I would have been like pretty upset with him.
Now you're like,
But
okay, this is where we learn about spoilers.
yeah, but anyway, like as you guys were writing the show, like was it hard to balance that or to just kind of come natural for, because you got to do it through the first show and then, kind of coming into this second show?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of the answer is a little bit of both. Obviously, having worked on Camp Cretaceous, I knew these characters so intimately, and the entire team on that show, the executive teams and our executive producers and story editor and all of that, did such a great job of setting up these characters and really making us care about them. And so when I came in to write, it was really easy to kind of pick up all their voices and things like that. But because I worked on it basically since the beginning, I definitely felt like I knew these characters really intimately. So in terms of putting them into these new situations, putting them into this new kind of age range for them. It felt really natural. And that's kind of also in that sort of I guess YA kind of older spaces, like where I kind of gravitate toward in my own writing. So it definitely felt really natural to kind of take them and progress them from where they were in Camp Cretaceous. It felt kind of like a natural progression. I think I don't want to speak for Scott, but I feel like, for he and I having worked on it the whole time, we both felt that a little bit of kind of coming back to these characters and it feeling like a familiar old friends or different things like that. And then really thinking about what would make sense for them moving forward, based on where they had been, but also wanting to try new things with them and see different sort of ways they're navigating life. And I think we got really lucky on Camp Cretaceous, to be able to explore some of those like stories like you're talking about with like relationships, mental health issues, different things like that. And so, because of the success of Camp Cretaceous, we were like, that's always what we pushed for in Camp Cretaceous. We want to do that in Chaos Theory. We want to make sure that we're not pulling any punches or talking down to any audience member, whether they're adults or kids or anything like that. Because everybody goes through difficult times. Everybody goes through those things, whether you're a kid or whether you're an adult. And so really focusing those kinds of important, I don't want to say important, like a lot of stories are really important, but just those important kind of elements that are true to these characters is like, we don't want to shy away from that. We want to kind of explore that. And yeah, and I think it was just a really great opportunity to be able to do that when they were older.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great to watch and like it's probably even different for you guys. Like me just watching them and then through both shows, like I almost felt like a proud parent, like,
Yeah.
oh, look how much they've grown. And like for you guys, I can't even imagine like,
Yep.
seeing where their stories, have taken them and like, oh, that's too bad. Like, oh, I'm happy for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, it was very cool. I loved everything about how they grew up. into chaos
Oh.
theory, seeing Ben the first time in that first teaser trailer, show up, like,
Yeah.
whoa, the dude is so tall. And uh one of my favorite lines, even though it's just kind of like there and meaningless for the whole thing, is when Yaz says Big Ben's got moves, like when
Yeah.
he's driving the van. It's just so funny because like she calls him Big Ben, and she
Yeah.
also calls him Benny Boy at one part. It's
Yep.
I love that character. She's probably my favorite
Oh,
character.
nice. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, it's just everything about the way she grew and developed and everything. um I think everybody has a soft spot for Darius just because the like
Yeah,
pretty
of
much the main
course.
character. And
Yeah, the dino nerd.
so, but
We're
I
all
could
dino
find a
nerds,
reason.
right? So
Yeah, I
he's
could find a
relatable.
reason like any of them are my favorite character, but, overall, I think I really like, Yaz, where she started, and then, where she's continuing to go now that we know for
Yeah,
sure we're getting, at least one more
at
season,
least
which
one more
is
season, yeah.
awesome. And I was I was really hoping they would give us a teaser trailer by now for Jurassic June, but,
I know.
that's
We have no control over any of that, so we're always like, when is it coming? I don't know, and sometimes the fans will find out, like, before we do somehow, and we're like, "Oh, cool. I guess it's
I
coming out then."
I love, like, I follow a lot of you guys, the writers, the animators,
Mm,
storyboard artists and stuff, like, on Twitter, and I love seeing all of y'all's reactions when stuff comes, because, like, we'll be watching the trailer, then an hour later, like, one of the artists is like, "Oh, look, there's a trailer for our
yeah.
show." It's
I
but,
think it's cool because 'cause we're all fans of the show too, which is also, just kind of a miraculous thing that sort of happened, where everybody's just, like, really into the show who works on it. That doesn't always happen, and so I think that's the fun thing too is, following all of the people that we worked with, but, like, seeing them kind of geek out when something happens or anything like that is really fun to kind of share in that because we shared in it, obviously, at the moment of making it, but then also getting to share it with all the fans that we are also part of, so I think that's really fun.
yeah. Everything I saw, everybody seems so proud of what they did, and y'all should be. Like, it was fantastic,
No, thank you.
fantastic show so far, and I'm sure it only gets better, which, is hard to top. But,
Hopefully,
we'll
we'll see.
see. Definitely looking forward to seeing where this show goes.
Yeah,
Um, so, like I said, I got some questions that could be all over the place.
sure.
No, I've got a dinosaur question.
Okay.
And, I've heard Scott mention in interviews before that he's kind of like, given a book or something like that of like, these are dinosaurs, we can use. So I know that there's a list of stuff that can be in the show, but do you guys as writers, do you get to kind of pick what's in what scenes or like what can show up where? Or is that kind of given ahead of time and you sort of just write the dinosaur story,
It really depends on
around
the
it?
situation. Yeah, yeah, I mean, also, to an extent, we're also limited by just sort of our budget and our assets and all of that of like what we can build and what we can animate. And we've got a lot of like limitations because we're TV of just what we're allowed to have how many dinosaurs we're allowed to have on screen, how many people, like different things like that. So there's definitely some limitations with that. And also like we only, we have a set amount of like characters we can even build, whether they're human or dinosaur, just with our budget. So sometimes you have to be like, well, I guess we're using a dimorphodon again, or something like that, just to sort of get across whatever it is you're trying to get across. So it's always funny to see fans' reactions of wanting more dinosaurs because we're like, we do too. We just don't have the resources. So we would love for there to be a lot more dinosaurs. And I think it just depends on the show too, because like obviously Camp Cretaceous was like a little bit different in terms of what dinosaurs we were using because we were on Nublar. And the same thing with Chaos Theory, especially at the beginning and things like that, where we're just kind of coming out of not just coming out of Fallen Kingdom, but we're kind of on the heels of Fallen Kingdom. There's definitely sort of a path that was set up by Fallen Kingdom and Dominion to follow in terms of what dinosaurs were even sort of out in the world at the time and different things like that. So we were, I don't want to say limited by that, but we had parameters for what we could and couldn't use in terms of, we didn't have any dinosaur available to us, but it's like, these are the ones that we think, would be in this area, especially because it's kind of that road trip sort of thing in season 1. And so seeing different dinosaurs in different areas was like we wanted to make sure that we were kind of staying true to like migration patterns and different things that were kind of set up in Dominion. So there was some limitations there in terms of what we could use. And then in terms of, kind of bigger sort of dinosaur set pieces, we usually get to pick kind of what dinosaurs we want from that group, but we pick it based on what's going to be the best for the particular story. So like the Nasutoceratops is in episode two kind of made sense for what we were doing and where we were located and all of that sort of stuff. So we really take all of that into consideration when we're picking which dinosaurs we're going to kind of spotlight in an episode. Is location and behavior and all of that sort of stuff goes into play. But then sometimes you just get kind of like little moments. Like I know at the beginning, I think it's episode 5 where you have the compies kind of fighting each other. That's something that the writer just kind of threw in there, and we had compy model, so we were able to do it. And so sometimes we also just the writer gets to like kind of throw in just like fun little sort of dinosaur moments that maybe aren't kind of for the plot or for the story. And then again, they kind of have that list of like what's been made, what resources do we have to be able to kind of make something like that happen.
That was really cool because it's a perfect example of like something you didn't get a lot of in Dominion, but like I know that fans wanted.
Yeah.
It's an example of something you would just kind of see happen. It's similar to like I had this big open field behind my backyard at my house, and like I've seen a hawk fly, swoop down, pick up a mouse, and just take off. And it was like almost the same thing, just with a dinosaur and a pterosaur. You'd see these compies fighting over a sandwich, and then here comes a pteranodon.
Yeah, exactly. And we kind of thought of that with like the Parasaurolophus herd as well, and kind of we have deer in where we live and different things like that. So it's kind of like, it was really fun to be able to do that stuff because I know obviously everyone was craving it. But it was also, we were craving it too. So we were like, what is this world like? What would it be like if dinosaurs really were like roaming around? And sometimes it'd be really scary, but sometimes it'd be really cool. And sometimes it'd be both at the same time, and I just think that's the fun thing about this franchise is just kind of being able to imagine all of those different scenarios. And obviously you want to stick true to kind of the original and what people love about the original and the scary moments. But there's also, the Brachiosaurus scene with Alan Grant and stuff. So it's always just trying to find the right balance between all of those moments. Yeah. And I wish we could sometimes highlight more dinosaurs than we're able to, but we do the best that we can.
Yeah. I hope everyone understands that, it's not unlimited in resources
exactly.
and budget and manpower and everything else. So just another question about the dinosaurs. In Chaos Theory Season 1, we were introduced to the Beckel Spinax.
Yes.
And you may not even know the answer to this. Is there a reason that it was used with that name, which is not the current name?
It's a good question. I have a lot, probably more than we probably have time for to say about it. I think at some point, Alta Spinax was brought up as a possibility, and then I don't know exactly where it came from, but at some point somebody was like, "No, this is what we're going with," and I don't know exactly where that came from or who it was, but I know it was brought up and it was discussed. I do think working in. Again, this is probably too much of a soapbox, so like feel free to cut this out if it's boring. But one of the things that I think about when this franchise is sort of there's our reality and there's the reality of Jurassic Park. And obviously those two things are not always the same because we don't have dinosaurs roaming around. So I do think that there is something. Yeah, exactly. I do think there is something interesting about this idea of if you had sort of different, taxonomies or different things like that, where you were actually bringing back a dinosaur with the DNA that is available to you. And then you brought back what you thought were like two of the same dinosaur, but they really ended up looking differently. Like, how would you classify them? And so that's kind of how I sort of view this. And there are people who are way smarter than me and actual dinosaur experts who would probably tear that opinion apart. And that's totally fine. And that's their prerogative to do. But that's sort of how I view it is like, I think the world of Jurassic Park, the world of Jurassic World has a little bit more variability there because we're bringing back dinosaurs as long as it's grounded in real science, which I think is always what we want to do in a show like this. I think it's kind of fun to be able to play with sort of what that can look like. And I wish we were able to get sometimes more into the science of it or seeing sort of the thinking behind it. But that's not always the most interesting thing to watch is, scientists in a lab sort of poking around. So so that's kind of just like my view on it, but.
Thank you. It just kind of on the science thing. I did a full podcast episode, and that I think Universal, DreamWorks, whoever's responsible for it, should release Darius's field guide.
Yeah, I think that'd be super cool
as a real book, but kind of make it educational for kids. So hey, if you know anybody, go ahead and pitch that.
Exactly.
I asked Paul McKell-Williams about it on Cameo.
Oh, yeah?
I'm like, hey, where do you think you should have the field guide as thing? And he's like, dude, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it'd be
So,
super
you
cool.
know,
Yeah.
if Darius himself likes the idea, why not?
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
exactly.
so we started things off and you're talking about, your knowledge of the Scorpius Rex. So season 3, before Chaos Theory came out, was, season 3 Camp Cretaceous was my favorite piece of Jurassic media of the last,
Oh,
25
that's awesome.
years. And you're a writer on Eye of the Storm.
Mhm.
And that to me, took that season from, like, very good to great, because it was kind of the transition period where we first really got to see the Scorpius. So there's a lot of tense moments. We get that super iconic shot of it in the lightning, which is, like, one of my favorite visuals in all of Jurassic. It's just
Yeah,
crazy and beautiful, and then you even ended on the emotional note of, Sammy getting injured. She's impaled with the quills and
yeah.
everything. Um you know, uh, is there anything, about that episode or the whole back half of season 3, that, stands out to you like that, you you know, just anything you have to say about that? I don't really know what I'm trying to ask. I just wanted to say, like, it was that episode, you know, took it from an 8 to an 11,
Mm,
sort of thing. And then everything from there on out was just nonstop. And that whole back half is just so amazing. There's so much great stuff in it. But is there anything in particular, that stands out to you about that episode or that you would want to say about that episode as the
um,
writer?
I mean, it was a super fun episode to write, and obviously the Scorpius Rex is such a fun dinosaur to kind of explore and talk about and talk about with the characters and all that sort of stuff and have them figure it out. I think it's kind of funny looking back on my time on Camp Cretaceous because I feel like I was always pushing for sort of those mystery elements, those sort of them uncovering different things. I feel like in my very first episode there was a little bit of that where Brooklyn is talking about the frozen flowers and they find like the E750 or they find a key card and different things like that. So it is kind of funny looking back my time because I'm like, oh, I feel like that really set up chaos theory a lot is like because I was always about the like what's the mystery, what are they uncovering, what are they trying to figure out. And so to me, being able to write the episode where they really um, are able to kind of figure out what this mystery is, but then there be another element to it later down the line that I think that was just really fun to be able to write that with those particular characters. And then also, again, kind of going back to like how I got into Jurassic Park, being absolutely terrified of it. I mean, writing that, I was like, oh, I'm going to traumatize a lot of kids just like I was traumatized. So I get to pay that back, which is really nice. And Mike Mullen, who is the director of that episode, he did such a great job like making the iconic lightning shot and different things like that and just really upping the fear factor of that episode and those characters. And I think to me that episode is really fun because and really cool because it really does sort of embody what it is to be a Jurassic sort of story where you have a few lighter moments with Darius and Kenji and things like that earlier in the episode and then shit gets real kind of at a certain point. And I think that's kind of the classic Jurassic thing. And I think that's what's super fun about that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, there's. I mean, the whole series, is good top to bottom. Some people 4 and 5 are a little, divisive for some people. No,
Sure.
I really enjoyed them. Um, but 3 just really, really stood out. So, when I was just going through and looking at like, oh, okay, which episodes in particular you know, that you were writing, I'm like, "Oh, wow, that was just" I'm not just gonna say it just because I'm talking to her,
Yeah, yeah.
it was a great thing, and, you know, moving on over to chaos theory, I'm sure you've seen a lot and heard a lot, but, like, for season 1, all of the reactions have been super, super positive,
Yeah.
and like people that wrote off the franchise after, Fallen Kingdom and Dominion because for whatever reason they're not big fans of where they went or they think Locust took up too much screen time, which I disagree with, but we're not going to get into that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but after like I'll give it a chance because the trailer looks like it's a little darker, a little more mature, and then reading some stuff from a lot of people or hearing people on podcasts that like nothing is good after the Lost World sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're like, this is the best stuff I've watched since the original
Yeah.
trilogy, and they're like completely back on board, and so many people are like, this is what we wanted from Dominion. This is what it should have been. There's so much world building, and we get to see what dinosaurs are really like, out in the real
Yeah.
world. But, with so many people saying so many great things and so much positive stuff about the show, like, how does that make you feel, knowing that, like, people that, like, possibly wrote off,
Yeah.
and were falling out of love with this franchise, that this animated show that you were a big part of is, like, reeling them back in, and now they're like, "I'm looking forward to the new movie. When is season 2 of Chaos Theory coming out?" And, you know
Yeah, no, it's definitely kind of a surreal experience because obviously Chaos Theory is very different than Camp Cretaceous in terms of tone and the characters and a lot of, like we were talking about the mystery elements and the conspiracy and all of that. So I remember so many times when Scott and I were working on it, we would just kind of look at each other and be like, are people even going to like this? Like, we like it, but what, we're just making something that we would want to watch, that we, as fans of Jurassic Park and as fans of the franchise and Jurassic World and all of that, are interested in. We like these characters, all this sort of stuff. So it's definitely a surreal experience because the whole time we were kind of going like, well, I hope people like it. I hope it's something that people want to watch. So, we were definitely all, I think, sort of collectively holding our breath a little bit when it was coming out, just to see sort of how the fan reaction was. So when it was positive, I think there was definitely just sort of a sigh of relief that we all had. Because again, we really liked it. We love this kind of storytelling. We love these characters and all that, but you just never really know how people are going to respond. But we would also kind of oscillate between going, are people going to like this, to going, I think people are going to like this. I think it's good. Is it good? Anytime we had a screening, the entire crew, like I was saying, they're all fans and stuff. So anytime we had a screening of any of the episodes, they would just get really excited by it. And it definitely, felt different than some of the shows I've worked on where people really get excited because they see that their thing is on screen. But this was really like everyone was around, like just kind of rallying around every story and every character and every design and all the animation and lighting. Like just everybody on the team really brought their A game to bring this to life. And you could just really feel that like palpable excitement anytime we watched it as a crew. So we definitely, we're hoping that the fans would see exactly what we were feeling or feel exactly what we were feeling. So when it came out and everyone really loved it, we were just, again, kind of just like relieved and excited. And, you put a lot of heart and care into it, and obviously people are going to have their opinions about it that they're going to have, and they're free to have whatever opinions they have. But a lot, you can't say that not a lot of care goes into it, because at the very least we really do care, and we might make different decisions than other people might make, but we really do care about the franchise and the story and the characters and all that sort of stuff. So it was just really I was just really grateful that people liked it. I was just really excited to see that they were excited by the same things that I was excited by. And yeah, just relieved, I think, mostly. So
That's great. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy because it exceeded my expectations, and
yeah,
it was really good. But I'm happy for all of you guys because it's got to feel so good. I not really the same thing. So I'm a software developer.
yeah.
Um, but it's like I don't really get that satisfaction, and it's in the medical industry. So it's
Oh,
not like, hey, this software helped save my life. This guy is
okay.
awesome. It's
Yeah,
so I don't really get to see that. So like seeing writers and artists and stuff have that, because I have some friends that are like photographers and videographers and stuff like that. And when,
yeah,
some of their work is like published somewhere, and like that look on their face of like, that's me.
yeah,
I kind of got that from just the reactions I saw from some of the crew on social media of like, wow, you guys really love this show. Like, you love
yeah,
our show. This is, it's genuine. It's not like, okay, they love our show, I have to, thing. So
yeah.
it's really awesome, because I wanted to ask you about the season finale, the end of the beginning.
Yes. Also a Mike
It's
Mullen directed episode, by the way.
it's it's full of, it's like we saved all of the action for the end. And there's my biggest thing, I'm not even gonna bother asking because you probably can't answer in case it's coming up down the line. It's like, where the heck did Mateo come from? He just shows up in a
Mm,
truck out of nowhere. He
yeah.
comes busted through. Actually, I had an episode on that. It's like I was sitting thinking one day, I'm like, who is Mateo? So I just kind of like just started talking as thoughts were coming into my head of like, I'm just gonna do an episode of this.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's so much going on, but something that I wanted to talk to you about is there are a lot of like parallels with Jurassic Park that I
Yeah.
noticed, and like two that stood out in particular was when the Atrociraptors we're fighting with the T-Rex. It's very reminiscent of Inside the Visitor Center, the
Yeah.
Velociraptors, and Rexy. And then, also when the T-Rex is roaring with the explosion in the background, the visual is very similar to Rexy roaring with the banner falling down and stuff like that. Were
Yeah.
you, particularly going for paying tribute to Jurassic Park, or did it kind of just come about and it's just a really cool coincidence?
No, that's a great question because I think at every moment, all of us on the crew are trying to figure out how to sort of pay homage and also to sort of connect all of our stuff to the originals and things like that, and pay our respects a little bit, but also like be able to sort of pull from some of the cool iconic things that they've done. So in every script, there's always a lot of moments that we're trying to kind of connect to different things. Like I said, in kind of an homage way. So I feel like it's throughout the whole thing. And then, but I think every department is always thinking about that, right? So like it starts with the writing and the shot in that particular episode where Darius is holding the stun prod and luring the Allosaurus to the fight is obviously very connected to when Claire Dearing does it in Jurassic World, but then obviously when it's set up in like kind of the OG Jurassic Park 2 where Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm are doing it and all that sort of stuff. So that was definitely like a script moment where we're like, that is, something that we really want in this episode as an homage, as a little callback to some of the iconic things that they've done in the previous films. And then, but every department does that. So storyboards, they'll add their own thing. I know like when we had the first I don't remember if it was our first animatic screening, but like when we first saw that moment that Mike Mullen put into the episode with the T-Rex coming out and roaring and the explosion behind, we all just kind of all collectively lost our minds. We were so excited by that. So he added that moment in. So I think, and even down the line into designs and lighting and animation, and every sort of department is always kind of has that in their mind to sort of go, okay, well, what is going to make this a Jurassic Park, a Jurassic World episode, and adding all those little moments in. So yeah, I think the fight, there's always a little bit of connection with the T-Rex and Raptors and all of that sort of stuff. And in terms of the staging, Mike and his team did an amazing job kind of staging all of that and figuring that out. So it kind of starts with the writing, but then everybody sort of just keeps adding and plussing as you go through the process. So that was definitely like one of those collaborative things where you start with the writing and you kind of mention these little moments and things that you kind of would like to see, and then everybody sort of takes it and runs, and it just ends up being even better than you could imagine.
Cool. You mentioned lighting. I thought the lighting was outstanding in
Yeah.
this show. Like
Yeah.
it was incredible. And I saw someone the other day, online mention like the lighting is so good they would like to see it in the theater on the big screen.
Yeah.
And that's when I
Yeah.
started my push for whenever the series ends, it should end with a movie that's in theaters. Like,
I would love that.
so
I
it's
would love that.
I would definitely go to the theater to watch it
Yeah.
because like Star Wars has done it with like Ahsoka and then most recently the Acolyte. Like, oh, the first two episodes, let's put into the theater.
Oh, I
And for
didn't even know
Ahsoka,
that. That's actually really cool that they've done that.
yeah, and then I guess Dave Filoni was so proud of the mid-season for Ahsoka because it was
Oh, sure.
The Clone Wars flashback. He put that one in theaters too,
Oh, cool.
which that episode was like super awesome. I'm also
If only
very big
we
Star
all
Wars
had the
fan,
power of
so
Dave Filoni.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, if anyone's listening, like
Yeah, exactly.
let's get Chaos Theory in theaters, even if it's just an episode. It'd be that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, the lighting was great and the score, and I was so happy that the soundtrack is available
Yeah,
online
that's
because
super cool.
it the score in season 3 stood out to me in Camp Cretaceous. I was like,
Mm,
I really wish I can, get this or listen to it because I like listening to that sort of thing a lot of times while I'm working because I don't want like super upbeat music a lot because it could
yeah.
distract me and then I'll start like finger drumming on the desk and like, oh, can't type if I'm
Yeah.
drumming, stuff like that. So listening to scores and stuff, I love it. So it was great that they released that. So um I appreciate the things a lot of people overlook, like the lighting,
Mm.
like the music, the sound effects. So like all those people also did a really fantastic job,
Yeah.
on
No,
the
I
show.
really,
It's
truly, just like every single department brought their A game. It's been kind of fantastic and amazing to see just everything be so elevated. And like you were saying, the music, I remember the first time I heard the end credits music, I almost lost my mind. I was just like, this is exactly what we wanted. This is exactly what we were imagining. All the designs have been amazing. The storyboard artists, like I said, production, they've made everything possible. It's just really like humbling to see everybody kind of come together to make something so cool.
Cool. Well, we can wrap up quick. I
Sure.
do have two small questions for
Sure.
you. Do you have a favorite episode, either that you wrote or that you just really like in general,
Oh,
across either show?
yeah, that's a good question. The first episode that I ever wrote, which is like the watering hole in season 2 of Camp Cretaceous, is always going to hold a little bit of a special place in my heart, just because it's the first one I got to write. And like I said, it kind of has all the like mystery elements that I love, and got to play with some character dynamics that you didn't always get to see with Brooklyn and Yaz and Sammy together, and different things like that. So that one uh, definitely has a special place in my heart. I don't know. All of Chaos Theory is obviously because, I was able to sort of be the head writer on that and kind of be able to oversee each episode. That one is really hard for me to pick a favorite. There are so many amazing moments that we got to put into the show that just, every time, like kind of like what I was saying earlier, we would talk about, spoiler alert, or different things like Kenji's dad. We would talk about that, and we would be like, can we get away with this? Can we even do this? And we would do it, and it would be it was this amazing kind of story moment. And the writer of that particular episode, Rocket, knocked it out of the park. And just being able to kind of put those moments that are kind of so important for these characters into each episode. So it's really hard for me to pick a favorite of Chaos here, because like they're kind of all my favorites. There are definitely moments, like I was saying, like that, or the moment in episode 6 when the van goes over the side of the bridge, where you're just like, wait, are we going to get away with this? Can we do this? And being able to, and also just visually, that shot was amazing. And Yaz's island looked amazing. And so it's really hard for me to pick one on Chaos Theory, because they're kind of all my favorites. But yeah, I think that first episode I ever wrote will probably is up there as my favorite. And again, it had all of the fun elements too, of like having the kind of awe and wonder moments that we talk about, where Darius and Kenji are seeing the watering hole, but then you also get the cool horror moments where Brooklyn and Sammy and Yaz are running from the baryonyxes. And so yeah, I think that one's probably my favorite, and then just all of Chaos Theory probably.
No, yeah,
So.
I could totally understand that. And yeah, you mentioning the Kenji dad scene, like I could not believe like that happened. And it was
Yeah.
it was very close to seeing like a cloth go through the
Mm-hmm.
head. Like
Yeah.
it was like, wow. And I wish I was there when my son watched it to kind of look and be like, is he okay?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a fantastic scene. I keep praising you and the team, but it's true. I'm not just kissing up
No,
to you.
I no, I
It is
appreciate it.
really fantastic.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
appreciate it.
Similar, do you have a favorite dinosaur?
Oh, that's always a tough one. I mean, I think it also depends on if you're talking about like Jurassic,
Any?
franchise dinosaurs versus real dinosaurs. Because I do really like the Dilophosauruses, but I think it's just kind of a cool thing that they can like spit venom at people. I always like that, but I know that that's not like a real thing. So I think that like the movie version of that is really fun. I really like what we were able to do with the Parasaurolophuses and making them bioluminescent, because I think that's kind of a cool blending of sort of the fantastical, but with really like grounded real world sort of science behind it. So
Mhm.
I also really like those dinosaurs. And I think that's where as a writer or somebody who's creating stories, I probably gravitate more toward liking sort of the Jurassic World dinosaurs, because you're able to take something sort of real and based in reality, and then add these sort of like fantastical elements, or not fantastical, but just sort of something that we don't necessarily know if they existed, and be able to kind of imagine around it. And I think that's really what people who are kind of studying dinosaurs do a little bit anyway, because it's like we don't necessarily have any sort of books or anything that tell us exactly what dinosaurs were like. So I think that's kind of the cool thing about dinosaurs. I think that's why it's hard for me to pick kind of one of my favorites, because I feel like it's so hard to know exactly what they were like, and what cool things they could do or look like, or the coloring, or the feathers, or the all of that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I think that's the cool thing about dinosaurs, but I think that's the tough thing about picking a favorite, because you're like, am I picking a favorite based on what somebody else thinks that dinosaur was like, or what I think a dinosaur was like,
Right.
or all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And then before we go, I have a game that I made up this morning.
Oh,
If
okay.
you want to play, I'm going to
Sure.
call it the five questions of chaos.
Okay.
They're questions about numbers in season 1.
Okay.
They could be easy or they could be hard.
Okay.
I don't know. They might all be easy to you. I'm not
We'll
sure.
try it. We'll see.
So we'll start off easy. How many Atrociraptors were there
How many
in season 1 of
Velociraptors
Chaos Theory?
in Chaos Theory? 3.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
How many
Is
Beckel
that right? That's
Spinax
right,
did
right?
Yes. How many Beckel Spinax did we see in season 1 of Chaos Theory?
2
Okay.
were featured. Sometimes we
Yeah.
use dinosaurs in the background, and I don't always know exactly what what we're
Yeah.
using.
Yeah,
So
that's that. I was assuming that's the right answer, but if
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
no, actually, this one back here was a completely different one, I would
sure,
believe you. So you could
sure,
just
fair
made
enough,
up an answer, and if you had a good story behind it.
fair enough.
Um, how many miles did Darius
Oh,
say it was between his cabin and Sammy's ranch that the
over
raptors tracked
1,000.
them? That was the first time. Do you know what he said the second time?
1,500.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to. That's also the tough thing is I'm like trying to remember exactly which moments are which. So I'm like
This is
they get a little jumbled.
I
But hey,
and
I
I
got
have
it. I got it
no,
eventually.
no, do good. And it's like, whose line is it anyway? Points don't matter. So
Yeah.
it
Okay. Fair
doesn't
enough.
matter what your
Fair
answer.
enough. Okay.
Um, this one is a date, but dates have numbers. Do you know what the date was of the most recent voicemail on Brooklyn's phone?
This is a tough one because there was a lot of discussion about this, and I don't remember exactly what the final date we landed on. I know at some point we see June 2022, but I want to say like June 24th, but I don't know.
I think it's August 21st.
August 21st. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think I probably should have had an answer.
Yeah, if you don't know, then
I'm pretty sure it's August 21st.
okay. Well, I was pretty close. I was within a couple months, but
yeah.
yeah.
And this
Yeah,
last one,
that one's a tough one because all of that stuff gets figured out sort of way after the writing. So even if we're like kind of making suggestions of like roughly, if they pick a very specific date, a lot of times we're like it's like way beyond us. But I know at some point you do see 2022.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, there are a few on there, and it's the kind of thing, if you're just like, watching it, or if you guys are watching as a group, you're like, oh, this is cool. But then
Yeah.
like someone like myself who's like totally nerding about the show, you're pausing it and you're
Yeah,
like, when does this
exactly.
show take place? Like, what is it happening? And then it totally threw off everybody's idea of when Dominion takes place,
Yeah.
since the show is before Dominion. So like, well, okay, we thought Dominion was the spring of
Yeah.
2022. Now it's got to be the winter or the spring of 2023, and like everyone's mind is blown because
I know that stuff is really tricky because obviously, like, you're also sometimes you're figuring it out as you go too. So you're going like, okay, it's roughly going to be in this time, but then something happens and you go, oh well, wait, now we have to adjust it so it's this time, or different things like that. So a lot of times we try to keep it a little bit vague just to kind of give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room as we're figuring out story and as we're writing. But I know at one point with that particular like voicemail thing, there was like a date that was sort of like temped in, and one of the writers came to me, he's like, that date is not correct. And I went and looked, and it was like years before, and I was like, okay, yeah, we can't do that. We got to at least get, we got to at least get it close. So yeah.
All right, and the last question, and I don't know if it actually has an answer. I have a best guess to the answer. Do you know what the passcode is Darius used to unlock Brooklyn's phone?
Oh, this is also a good question because I remember one of the storyboard artists asked me specifically like what I thought that Brooklyn's passcode would be. And I kind of was like, I don't know. What do you think it could be? And that storyboard artist, I think it was Avery, was like, I think that it would probably be one of their birthdays. So that would be my guess. It's one of their birthdays, but I don't know which one, and I don't know what the numbers are. So yeah.
I don't really. I tried to watch it last night or this morning when I thought of the these questions, and then like the fingers don't actually hit the numbers.
Yeah, they go
They're just
like really quick, and they're kind of
like hovering in the vicinity. So I'm like, maybe it's 2, 3, 3, 4, but maybe it's something else. So
yeah.
I was just hoping maybe like you guys actually had an actual answer, but yeah.
Yeah,
so.
sometimes we leave that stuff vague again, like if the board artists kind of want to put something in there, or or for the animators to play around with. But yeah, I think it was probably I don't know if we ever actually landed on when their exact birthdays were or whose birthday it was, but I think Brooklyn would probably pick somebody's birthday. But I could also see her picking sort of a random date, sort of close to her, maybe the day they landed on Nublar or something like that. Or she could, honestly, at this rate, we don't really know a lot about what Brooklyn was up to. So she could have also just picked something that she just thought no one would guess.
Yeah.
She was wrong.
And I didn't even pay attention to what Kenji was entering. So
Mm.
I guess that could have been another question. What was the wrong passcode? Which
Yeah, yeah,
literally
exactly.
any 4 numbers is the wrong one.
Probably
But
the day they started dating, and he's like, "That's clearly what it's gonna be."
yeah,
Uh-oh.
obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap up.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time because I'm
No,
sure you
thank
got a
you.
lot going on. I've got to get back to work.
Yeah,
So,
definitely
but
get back
you know,
to
I yeah, no, that's okay. This is way more fun. I would
Fair
do
enough.
this, all day if we were
Yeah.
able to. But thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely fantastic.
No,
I'm
thank
really
you. Thanks
looking
for having
forward
me.
to
This was
see.
really fun to chat about a show
Yeah,
I
and
love, that we both
I'll
love, so
yeah, I'll thank Tom for being the
Yeah.
middleman here. Tom's a great guy. Uh, but yeah, if after season 2, if you want to chat, you know where to find me.
Yeah.
I would love to talk again because I'm sure I'm gonna have 100,000 questions.
I'll try to be
But
more prepared with my numbers answers next time too.
well, now I'm gonna have to throw you a curveball and be something
That's
different.
true,
Well,
that's
I'll
true.
have to come up with a new game. But if I get to talk to anyone else, I'll play the same game with them, and
Perfect,
then
yeah,
we
see if they
then we
do.
can compare scores.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
exactly.
So right now
So
you're at the
far, I'm
top of the
undefeated.
leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly, so far
Exactly.
I'm undefeated, so
Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much again.
No, thank
It
you.
was
This is super
super
fun.
great talking to you, and I can't wait to see season 2.
Yeah, coming out at some point.
Yeah,
Very
well,
excited to find out.
fall. We know it's coming
Yeah,
out in
yeah,
the fall,
exactly.
but we
In the
don't know
fall.
anything else about it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
obviously you know about it. I don't know anything other than one picture that was released with the stuff. So, but it's good to see the Suchomimus getting some love.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
that's something that fans have been wanting for a really long time because it was like on the original Jurassic Park list, and then
yeah,
it never shows up. So
until now.
yeah, it's great. It did get a little bit of time to shine at the very end of season 1,
Yeah,
but it looks like it may have a nice part in season 2, or maybe it's just that one scene. I don't know. We'll find out.
who's to say?
But yeah, but yeah, thanks again.
Cool.
This is so great.
No, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you once again to Bethany for taking time out of her busy schedule. Like I said, I had so much fun doing it. It was really great. I do apologize if production quality isn't quite up to, this where I'm in my home studio, just because of my schedule. I used my mobile studio, which is a fancy way of saying my car, to record my half of the interview. So, if, it doesn't live up to the quality of this. I did bring a good microphone with me this time, and I turned on some background filtering stuff and everything. So hopefully it turns out better than the other things I've done in my car, the other interviews, or when I was on the Jurassic Park podcast. I know the audio quality wasn't so great there, but you know, got to deal with you know, work with the hand you're dealt, I guess. I just wanted to get the interview in. I didn't want to take up too much of her time or, interrupt with her schedule or anything. So I made it work. We made it work. If I had to do it in my car, I had to do it in my car. Whatever. I don't mind. Hopefully you guys don't mind. And again, I can't thank Bethany enough for taking time out of her schedule. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. And like I said, maybe after season 2, we'll get to chat again. I don't know. If anyone else out there that was involved in the making of this show, whether it be writers, animators, storyboard artists, lighting, music, sound effects, anything. If anyone's listening to this and you think, hey, I wouldn't mind chatting with him too, please hit me up. My DMs are open on Twitter at Cretaceous_Dave, or you can always reach the podcast at JP_Campcast on Twitter, or at Cretaceous Campcast on Instagram, Threads, and here on YouTube if you're watching it on YouTube. Anyway, that's all I've got. This is probably my last episode for Jurassic June. I hope you guys all had a fantastic Jurassic June, and we've got lots of exciting stuff to come. The future's looking bright with Jurassic. We've got Chaos Theory Season 2 coming up in a few months. We've got the brand new Jurassic 7 movie coming out just a little over a year from now. It'll be a year away next week. So that's awesome. Hopefully we get a new, title for the movie or some little bits of information about it coming soon. We'll see. It's really exciting times to be a Jurassic fan, though. So, as always, I want everyone to out there to stay safe, stay Jurassic, and have yourselves a good one. So long.